Hello everybody, George Taylor from Entracte Audio here. Today I'd like to talk about the Angela-Gilbert Yeung C310 Pre-Amplifier. Now, the C310 Pre-Amplifier is based on the AG 2022 project, which you've seen probably in one video or another. That's the one with all the crazy colored wires and stuff like that sprouting out from it. But we used that project to distill down to what we would consider to be a cost-effective preamplifier with some actually very interesting features. This is the same. I don't want to say the same. This is a similar preamplifier to what you would find inside the i802 integrated, but it's got a far more robust power supply and some really neat switching options. Over here on the far end, we have a selector switch. 3 channels, 3 input channels. We'll talk about those in a minute. But the really cool stuff are these switches on the front panel. Okay, this switch is for an X2 capacitor circuit, which is an AC rated filter circuit. This is a switch for a paper and oil capacitor circuit. Now, these two capacitor circuits combine to create a tube simulator effect. You can get a tube simulator effect out of this switch, you can get a tube simulator effect out of this switch, or you can flip them both and you can get a combined tube simulator effect that's a little bit more tubey than you would with either one. So there are 3 possibilities here. Over here is a switch where you can either switch the capacitors in or switch them all out and just run it plain solid state, which is also a great sound if that's what you prefer. And then, of course, we have the volume control over here. Actually, remote volume control is supplied with the unit, so you can turn it with your hands, you can turn it with a remote, your choice. Okay, back to here, the input selector switch. We have a total of 3 inputs. There are 2 inputs for RCA cables. There's also a combined RCA balanced input on the back, which I'll show you in a second. So, cool features, and of course, separate power supply, transformers in here. Generally speaking, we wouldn't mount this on top of that, but we're doing that just because we have one place to put this, and I don't want this dangling around over on the floor. But we do this, obviously, to get the transformer out of the box. That's one of the advantages of having separate components. You've got more room to do things like this, like take this outside. Anyway, let's go to the back panel. Now, we'll start over on this end. 1, 2, 3 RCA inputs. Also the option for a balanced input over here. And you can use either or. What we have are 2 sets of outputs. 1 balanced output, 1 single-ended output. We have a ground lift switch over here, and then we have the SP capacitor pack input jack in case you decide down the road that you'd like to upgrade this little guy. Then it's as easy as plugging in another module, and the effect, as we've documented in all sorts of videos and a number of reviews, is quite easy to hear and very, very, very effective. It's a really great system for just upgrading something simply without having to take it apart or without having to sell it and buy another product. And then finally we have the power input jack from the power supply, IAC AC input. And that's really all there is to it. It's a fairly simple amplifier. I can tell you that the first thing I did when I got an i802, and sorry to talk about another project here for a second, but when I got the i802 integrated amplifier, the first thing I did was, well, not the very first thing I did, one of the first things I did was to take an RCA out into a power amplifier just to see what the preamp was like, and I can tell you the i802 preamp section is really very good. Imagine a preamp section that's got a separate power supply and a much bigger, sorry, that's bad English, much bigger capacitance. This has over 250,000 farads in it. Sorry, 250,000 microfarads, so 1/4 farad. So it's a pretty robust power supply when you consider this is just for a preamplifier. Anyhow, if you would like to ask more questions, and people always like to ask more questions, send them via email to www.angela-gilbert.com. If you would like to arrange a visit to come and listen to what this sounds like, or you want to ask me questions about it, check out www.entracteaudio.com or email me at entracteaudio@rogers.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of the day.